Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur here, and welcome to Inspirations for Your Life. We have a great little show for you tonight. So, this whole week, starting from basically Saturday to Friday, these seven episodes in the series are talking about how and why time is important to you. And so when we think about time in our life, there's lots of great things, right? But where is time used? So time is used in sports, right? It's the ability to track athletes' movements in relation to external factors. It helps in the combination of decision making and coordination of reaction time, which player gets to the certain point, who's going to get the award, how do we figure out placements, how does all this work? And I think it comes down to the idea that time is unbiased. Time is something that just is. It's black and white. It is what it is. There's no, it's this way or it could be that way. It just doesn't exist with time. When we think about time in our life, time is a organizer of information in our life. When you say meet me at this time or meet me at that time, if you didn't have time, when would we meet? We'd all hope that we connect, but we really don't. How would how would trains be able to be on time? How would planes? How would people get on the right plane? How would they know when the right plane is? So time is something that is very, very precious. However, a lot of people waste time. They don't know how to manage it. We'll talk later this week about sleep time, which is really vital for success of entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs. Time is something that we need to appreciate in our lives. And when we appreciate this in our lives, do you know what happens? We're able to have more time. Well, John, how does that work? How do we get more time in our life? I don't understand that. Well, it's kind of like the analogy I gave you with gratitude, right? When we are grateful for what we have, more things show up in our life that we can be grateful for. Pretty cool, right? So time is something that has been around for years. So when did time first start, right? I think that's probably a question a lot of people ask. So the measure of time began with the invention of sundials in ancient Egypt, just prior to 1500 BC. But around that time, the Egyptians' measurements was not the same as the time today's clocks measured. For the Egyptians, it was for 3 millennia. The basic unit of time was the period of daylight, right? So, according to archaeologists, the Babylonians and the Egyptians began measuring time at least 5,000 years ago. They introduced calendars to organize and coordinate communal activities and public events. So time is when something starts and stops. But then we also need to realize that part of time is a date. So if I say I'm going to meet you on the 24th at 7 p.m., the time is represented by the actual hour, whether it's AM or PM, or if we're using military time, respectively. And what is the date? That's all part of time. So we understand now what composes time. Does that make a little more sense? So we know time as either being digital, or it could also be using a clock with a shorthand and a long hand, right? Where the shorthand points to the hour and the big hand points to the actual minute. So when we think of time in our life, all right, think of it as organization. as a common thread that allows us to be on the same page, right? If you're in a classroom and the teacher says to you, or the professor says to you, we're on page 127, that's kind of like time, right? It brings us to the same page so we all can be on point together. So why is it that people are against time? So what makes people, let's say, hate time? Because I know there's people out there. I think it happens because they're not organized and they don't know what they can do and what they can't do. So to be angry at time is not really the problem. It comes into play to really, are you organized? Are you doing things efficiently? And if you're not, it's very easy to blame something else or someone. But the real onus comes down to you, to me, to take responsibility, take accountability for our actions, right? I had a limo driver many years ago, and he always was more than on time. He was a half hour to 45 minutes early, and he's still my limo driver to this day. And the reason is when he shared with me the fact that when you're on time in this business or any business, you're late. And I didn't get that at first, but then I realized that being on time creates this whole set of respect for people, knowing that you're going to manage your time and value other people's time. And when you value other people's time, guess what happens? They actually will value your time. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Time. When was the first clock ever invented? Well, the first mechanical clock was invented in Europe around the 14th century. And basic timekeeping devices happened to be not till we actually saw the pendulum clock. And that was invented in 1656. So there were all kinds of components that came together over time to give us the modern day time pieces that we have today, right? Timelines, evolutions, sundials, obelisks, Greek water clocks, which was an early prototype of the alarm clock, and it was invented by the Greeks around 250 BC, and the Greeks built a water clock called a clepsydra, where the rising waters would both keep time and eventually hit a mechanical bird that triggered an alarm whistle. So clepsydras were more useful than sundials because they were used and they easily indoors during the night and also when the sky was cloudy. Although they were not accurate, Greek water clocks became more accurate around 325 BC, and they were adapted to have a face with an hour hand. There were candle clocks. The earliest mention of candle clocks comes from the Chinese poem written in 520 AD. The graduated candle with a measured rate of burn was a means of determining the time at night. Other candles arose from the Japanese until right around the early 10th century. We all remember the hourglass, right? And from the 15th century onwards, hourglasses were used primarily to tell time while at sea. An hourglass comprises two glass bulbs connected vertically by a neck, and then there was some sand or other ingredient inside, and when you turned it, they were precisely able to time. You probably remember some of the board games, and you had a timer that would be 30 seconds. Well, they had to calibrate, basically making the neck at the right thickness or diameter so that it allowed just enough sand to get through and be for that exact time. Monastery clocks and clock towers, church life, and monk callings would pray based on clocks. The first recorded clock was built by the future Pope Sylvester II around 1996. And then more sophisticated clocks evolved later with the monks. And Peter Lightfoot, a 14th century monk of Glastonbury, built one of the oldest clocks still in existence today. And it's in use at London's Science Museum. So then we went over to a wristwatch, and there were lots of different things that evolved. But, when we think about time, all right, do you understand what it means when I say to you to be on time? Do you know what it means when I say to you, do you know how to keep time? I remember many years ago when I was younger, learning how to tell time because I always had a digital watch. And my grandparents would always say to me, I'm going to take that digital watch away from you until you learn how to tell time. And that's when, I learned quarter past the hour, half past the hour, quarter to the hour, 20 of, 25 of, 10 of. And so it became very easy. But in the beginning, telling time with a watch face like this, it seemed a little daunting of a task because, let's face it, it was a lot easier to look at a watch that just showed a digital number that you just read. So I think being able to tell time and know how time is measured helps me as a person appreciate the time I have for a task or the time I have to do something. And I feel that if you will embrace time, you're going to find out you actually have more time. That's pretty cool, right? But some people squander and waste time. And the reason they do this is because they're chronic procrastinators. And they don't realize that time is something that once it elapses can never be returned. Now you might say, gee, I have alarm clocks and I can wind them up as many times as I want. Yes, you can. And you can rewind 10 minutes as many times as you want. But you never get that 10 minutes from that 10 minutes and that 10 minutes. Because it's always going to be further into the future. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand. But what I want you to understand tonight about time is that it is a device and mechanism to help us balance, organize, and orchestrate our lives. Time is not there to make us stressful. It's there to give us proper balance. But a lot of people try to push that envelope. Like, oh, I could do it if I just stretch a few more minutes, and then they're late, and then they're running behind, and then they speed, and that's not good. So do you respect the clock, or do you just try to beat the clock? And if it's somebody who tries to beat the clock, you're probably saying, oh my gosh, I never have enough time. I can never finish what I'm doing. Start embracing time and start respecting time. And you'll find out really quickly that time is actually being delivered more to you than you ever imagined. I enjoy being here with you guys every single day or evening, and just love being here with you and sharing knowledge and helping you guys become better versions of yourself and helping other people become better versions of themselves. I'll see you tomorrow, everyone.